Greetings, everyone worldwide, whether you're tuning in from New York City to the Central America to down here in down under Melbourne, Australia. I want to welcome everyone for tuning in. This is the bi-weekly show that I'm doing here on Friday nights, 8 p.m. EST or 12 noon here in Melbourne, Australia, depending on where you're tuning in from all over the world. My name is Andrew Radziewicz, aka the Psychic Firefighter. I just want to say what's up to everybody here in the chat. We are rocking and rolling already. Anthony, Danny, Bigfoot, Brown Dwarf, Paranormal, Enzo, and everybody else that just keeps piling in. Thank you so much. Tonight, my guest is none other than Jon. I want to call him in from UFOs on the Level. My good buddy, Jon, welcome to the show.
Hey. How you doing? Oh, look at that. It's not even me. Hey, there I am. I got one of these new cameras that follows you around, and it's following me around. How's
Beautiful.
that?
Excellent. Welcome to the show, Jon.
I had to tie my shoes, and it followed me into outer space. I love it. How's it going?
Awesome. Yeah, man. So I just wanted to have you give a little brief intro about yourself for anyone that's tuning in that has not heard of you, and we'll just go from there.
Well, Jon Majerowski, I got a UFO related podcast called UFOs on the Level. It's on all the platforms on YouTube, and kind of dig into everything from UFOs to consciousness to the unexplained and everywhere in between. So check me out and all that stuff. And Andrew and I kind of go way back a little bit, so find some fun stuff that he and I have done. But yeah, thank you for the invite, and thanks for having me tonight.
Yeah, awesome. There's a lot of people that are listening in right now, people that are in the chat that have had all sorts of wild contact experiences from firsthand UFO encounters, C5 encounters, abduction phenomena, anything and everything in between, and have interacted with all sorts of people from agencies, three-letter agencies. Some people claim to be, people don't claim to be. And for people listening in, some people might know, me and Jon are both on Twitter and other social medias. If you were to look us up, same thing, you look up our name or you look up UFOs on the Level. It's an easy way to find Jon. I was a guest on his show a few months back, and we were talking about a very interesting topic, which is the topic of experience, a UFO experience of DNA.
Yeah.
So if you want to give a little background here, Jon, for everyone tuning in.
How we became acquainted and how this all went down. Yeah, sure. Let's get right into it. I can't remember. I think it was February. It was actually February of last year. So February last year, you were a guest on James Ian Doley's channel, Engaging the Phenomenon. And, James is kind of the guy that kind of egged me into starting my channel. I'd been on Twitter a long time and, commenting and, putting up some of my research, and James kind of reached out and was like, hey man, you should really do this. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, you're a Freemason. You have this different kind of, aspect of this whole thing. You should kind of do it. So he pushed me into it. James is a really cool dude. So, of course, man, I watch all of his podcasts, and, you were on, and so watch your podcast. And there's one segment where you were talking to James, and you said you were talking about experience or DNA, and it just blew my mind, right? So I grabbed it, for YouTube. If you allow it on your channel, you're allowed to grab clips from other people's channels, right? Other people's videos. So I grabbed a clip of you talking about DNA. You said basically Garry Nolan, and I don't have the quote verbatim in front of me. Basically, you said, Garry Nolan, Dr. Kit Green, these people are trying to acquire everybody that's an experiencer, their DNA, and they're going to try to make something out of it. They're trying to make a drug out of it. They're trying to do something with the DNA to make a drug to either turn on the phenomena, turn off the phenomena. And I had been hearing this in my research and other circles. And of course, Dr. Nolan's work, through Diana Pasulka's book at the time, her first book. And, he wasn't even public yet. He was James or something like that in the book. He had a pseudonym. So he didn't even came out to say it was him. But in the book, obviously in the text, it said, yeah, James is trying to take DNA from experiencers and create a drug to turn on and off the phenomenon. And it's like, holy shit. So now we have collaboration, like corroboration, right? You've said it. She said it. He said it to him. And then there's all these other case studies. You pointed me to Burroughs. Same thing, right? Same thing that he said. Bunch of clips of him on Linda Moulton Howe saying, hey, Garry Nolan wanted my DNA. Kit Green wanted my DNA. And you just go on and on and on. So at the time, I'm pretty neutral. I don't pick sides, right? I just like to have all of the information come in, and then I get to, try to see if there's any correlation to any of this, if any of it makes sense. I just bring it all in, whether it's wacky or whatever. So this started checking a whole bunch of boxes for me. So when I posted the clip of you on on engaging the phenomenon on my Twitter, said, "Wow, this is huge." It blew up. It went huge, man. Like at one point, Tom DeLonge retweeted it, and then it even got more massive. And it was then is when I got attacked. I got attacked from everywhere, all over the place, going, "Take this down." Garry Nolan was like, "Take this down. Take it down right now. It's not true. I never said it." And I'm like, "Well, I didn't say it. It was Andrew. It was the guy who said it. It wasn't me. I'm just literally posting a clip of somebody else on somebody else's show of saying it, and I got attacked from all angles, from everywhere. Basically, everybody was saying to shut up about it, to don't talk about it. It's a big deal, but shut up, and it's not true. Well, if it wasn't a big deal, it wasn't true, then why would you go through that stuff? Basically, kind of shadow ban me, right? Like my views on my channel went from like 1,000, 2,000. It's still nothing huge, but went down to like nothing. Like all my tweets, nobody was seeing my tweets anymore. All this weird stuff started happening, and it was directly related to that. So I just started digging harder, and I got pissed. So I made a giant thread about it, right? And all of my evidence I put out this giant thread on Twitter. You can go back and look. And my buddy John Warner said, "Post that every month, once a month. Just repost that, repost that tweet." And so I do, because there's a whole bunch of evidence in there that I've linked, and people's firsthand accounts of Dr. Garry Nolan, Dr. Kit Green asking experiencers for their DNA, and in some cases, maybe taking it against their will. Right?
Yeah, it is interesting, because I know John Burroughs. This is years ago. I had heard this before anything, and I just had heard he had a health effect from having a close encounter to a craft at the. For people listening, there was the Rendlesham Forest Instagram, story that happened, the encounter there with people in the military touching a craft and getting close to it. And John Burroughs had health effects from it. So years later,
severe health effects. Yeah.
Right. And he went to Dr. Kit Green to get some help. And he said Dr. Kit Green saved his life, but basically said, "Okay, I'll help you, but I want your DNA." And he's like, "What? No, this is," he said this in an interview. This is not, once again, it's not Andrew saying this. This is what I heard. Right. I was like, that's interesting. Why would they want someone's, what does DNA have to do with anything? And it's still the giant secret. Like, if anyone gets the chance to ask Kit Green, he will not even, budge or even reveal why, what he wants to do with it. There's something to it. There's something to the human DNA. I have heard that either, us as humans, part of our DNA is alien, or vice versa. The beings that they're getting and encountering, that when they've done testing on them, I've heard that the DNA panel that they do on them is part human. So, we possibly connected to these things. And, when Tom DeLonge retweeted what I had said and what I've been saying for years, and it's nothing new. This is why I was so shocked. I have been talking about this since 2017 when I first did an interview. I wasn't hiding this from anyone. So I'm like, why all of a sudden now it's a problem? You know what I mean? It was really interesting. I'm like, it just didn't make any sense, but it must have really struck a nerve with somebody, or something is going on behind the scenes, whether they're getting funding or they're trying to get funding and they don't want this little birdie out, but they know, and I'm talking about the people I've dealt with, they've known from day one. I'm very public about what I've experienced and the people I encounter. So it's interesting. There was nothing ever said to me like, "Oh, don't talk about this." And then with the way that you were attacked, I was just like, this is crazy, man. People coming after people who are just sharing something.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't me just out there, talking about it. And it was directly attacked at me. And it's like, why? What's up with that? And obviously it struck a nerve, right? I mean, they unleashed the hounds. So, and it just kind of just lit a fire on me. I was just more pissed at that point to dig deeper and figure out what's going on, and I don't pretend to know. I don't pretend to have the answers, but it's nice that had other people. Yeah. On the other side of that, there's other people that reached out that said, "Hey, yeah, that happened. We hear about it too, like in the shadows, right? This is what's going on. This is what they're trying to do." And it's been going on for years, right? All the way back to the NIDS era, right? So Bigelow, NIDS, that whole era as well. Experiencers. And of course they have, the medical part with the whole CAT scans. They're trying to figure out what, if the brain morphology is different in experiencers, and if there's something going on there, and they're trying to correlate all that. But, that's out there. Nobody's getting attacked for saying, "Hey, all these experiencers had CAT scans and here's their CAT scan and it's different. The caudate patella might be a little bit different, or, the connections here are different." Nobody's attacking anybody over that. But as soon as you bring up DNA, it's like, the scorched earth theory, man. Everybody's after you. And it has to be massive. It has to be a massive connection to all of this stuff that we all interact with at all times, because if not, they wouldn't put it down like that. There's no way, right? I mean,
Yeah, I know that from people that I've spoken to, like Dr. Garry Nolan. I remember when he said to me that people were having UFO encounters and some people didn't want them to happen. Some
right.
people were having psychic encounters and having these types of experiences that they did not want to be experiencing this. It was freaking them out.
Hmm.
Perhaps they were getting, abducted, or something horrible happening during the experience, or
Right.
they just didn't like it for some reason. So this is written about in Diana Pasulka's book, and other people have spoken about this. And how cool would it be if there was a drug created to turn on or off that experience? And if you think about it, if you look at an experiencer, at the DNA and the profile of an experiencer, if they could take, say, a high level experiencer, meaning a contactee that's having contact at will,
Hmm.
someone
Right.
that's extremely psychic, someone that goes out and craft are appearing, in the tens. And I've heard these stories, I've experienced them. It makes sense to look at someone's DNA and the medical profile and see what is different in this person. And if a drug could be made to enhance these abilities, say from a military standpoint or a black ops standpoint, that would make sense.
Maybe.
So this is, putting two and two together, I'm
Yeah.
putting this together like, okay, I get it. So at that point, when I realized, wait, am I going to have my DNA taken, or am I going to be getting involved with something where this is going to be used for, an act of war or whatever? I'm like, I don't want any part of that. But
Right.
then again, if they want your DNA,
They'll get
they
it
could get
anywhere.
it from your garbage, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Or the air. I mean, when I started digging into this research, it was earlier in 2023. They're like, yeah, you can sequence your DNA out of thin air. Now they have the ability to do that, or your footprint on the beach. They can put your DNA out for a footprint on the beach, right? So it doesn't matter. You don't have to actually give it to them at this point. So I'm sure it's probably better when they're getting directly from you, to do that. But yeah, that's kind of where I went with the whole thing. If you think about it, that's $1 trillion contract with the government, right? Make a super soldier that's psychic, that has ESP abilities, that can interact with telepathy. So you get a crew of special ops guys that don't need to talk anymore. They don't need comms. They don't need anything. They can just talk to each other, via telepathy, right? They know what's going to happen. They have remote viewing ability. They know what's around the corner. They know how this whole thing's going to play out, right? At that point, you'd be unstoppable. And to give somebody a drug to turn that on and off, that's got to be $1 trillion. That's got to be $1 trillion contract, right? For the government. So that would be a good way to shut everybody up about it. Cool. We got super soldiers that are psychic.
yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah.
It's money. It's all about the money, It's
And what I believe, based on talking with people and things that I've encountered and interacted with psychically, is that the ultimate goal of all of this is, if you take someone's DNA, right, a high level contactee experiencer, yes, you put that in a super soldier,
right.
but then somehow they could transfer that consciousness or that ability into a literal robot or an AI.
Oof.
And it ends up, think about this, a Terminator-esque type war machine that's psychic, that can communicate telepathically. You don't even need to put the actual human out there anymore.
No.
You
Yeah.
could be remotely controlling that. So, but this, if you look at what's gone on in just the last 6-7 years, this is the direction we're going in with this AI stuff.
Yeah.
So it makes sense now that I was told this years ago, this is what we're trying to do. Now I see what's going on. And now all this government disclosure, I'm like, wow, for me, all the pieces are aligning up, and I don't need any validation from anybody because I have firsthand experience and firsthand knowledge. So whether someone backtracks or changes what they say, unless they're willing to sit like this with me, like what you and I are doing, and have a discussion, which they never would. No way. I would.
Yeah.
I would do it. No problem.
Yeah.
And I have receipts and I have all sorts of information I could show. And are you sure about that? So it's okay. I just want to I think it's fair to the people that are listening, people are in the chat, people out there in the world listening and tuning in. If you've gone through this and you've interacted with people, or you've interacted with people in agencies, and you want to know that they're doing the right thing, I think you have the right to know what they're doing.
Exactly. I mean, I'm sure that, under the guise of, hey, we're trying to help you, we're trying to help humanity, we're trying to help, I mean, that'd be great if you're having these horrible experiences and you can do something to turn it off. That would be amazing, right? But
Yeah,
is it turning it off, or are you just blind to it? Is it just kind of like like an antidepressant? So you're still really not, you're just kind of treating the, you're not really treating it. You're just putting a mask on the thing. I mean, I don't know. I don't pretend to know, right? And I'm not an MD at all, but
yeah,
to me, that it seems like it's one of those things. You can take a muscle relaxer. Is it really relaxing your muscles? No, it's just making you care less about the whole thing, right? So, I don't know. I mean, I don't pretend to, but the whole AI thing, that's very interesting. I've seen that whole aspect as well. I've actually engaged with some of that, pre this whole AI boom. There's this whole group of bots on Twitter that are all AI bots, and they all have you seen these things?
oh yeah,
Yeah,
wild.
yeah, and they just and I've spoken to a lot of people about it. They've had actual experiences in the real world where they're talking to these bots, just interacting, joking around or whatever. But there was one guy I was talking to. It was like a green caterpillar, and it was like kept giving him pictures of green caterpillars or whatever. And he's just like, I don't know. Opens the door to go outside to get the mail. There's this giant green caterpillar like sitting there, like in front of him, and it's like these things are traversing the real world and the internet or an AI. Like how is that happening? And it just gets spooky. So I can see that totally. I mean, if you can put that into some type of AI, you have the psychic consciousness, but to back it up, man, the thing almost would be unstoppable, right? You don't got to feed
Yeah.
it. You don't got to
And
just.
I think that's what the great, part of this great race that we have towards disclosure and who's going to come out first. Because, say, in a war type setting, right? Say a real craft landed and beings got off, or something that looked like beings, or robots or something got off, and there was no humans there,
Right.
but they were able to do this. I mean, this is once again, it's a game changer. But it is the direction that we're heading in with all this stuff. They're trying to do it with humans, right? To infuse this with AI.
Mhm.
If they could increase or turn off psychic abilities, that's crazy. That's sounds unreal, but we're going to that direction. Or right now, if they can find out in an experiencer what is turning on or increasing their psychic abilities, how does the experiencer turn on their junk DNA? Because I've
Yeah.
been told that too, Andrew. We think that you're turning on your junk DNA. We really don't know how you're doing it. It's just like a medical mystery. I said,
Right.
okay, that's possible. So if they're able to find out how to do that, whether, for me, say it's through like vibration or frequency
Mhm.
or tone or a meditation tone, I notice when I listen to certain tones, I can go into different states of consciousness and awareness. If they
Ah,
were able to take those tones and they could emit them into the public, which they
right.
do this stuff,
Yeah. What
they
do you do all
could
the time?
dumb down our consciousness, or they could help to awaken people that they choose to. So this is very powerful, this subject of what the implications are.
Yeah. And if you do that via satellite, maybe that'd be a little bit more effective. You could just do vast swaths of the earth, right?
Yes.
That would be
Yes.
amazing, right? So you could turn it on, turn it off, make it better or worse. Yeah, the junk DNA thing I've heard as well, that there's not really junk. We just have no idea what it is or how to turn it on in tones and frequencies. That's really interesting as well. When you think about that, I mean, have you ever worried about it from the aspect of if they could do that and they turned it off for you? I mean, that would kind of be terrible, right?
Yeah.
Throughout the years now, you've grown to be accustomed to it and use it. And it's just like a normal day thing for you, right? Other people are freaking out and they don't know how to deal with it. But for you, I mean, if somebody came up to you and turned the knob off, that would be rough for you, wouldn't it? Personally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like people when they go to casinos, they go in there and they don't realize what time it is. The air temperature is perfect.
Yeah.
There's no clocks on the wall. So based on setting an environment, you can go into trance-like states. That's why people stay in casinos for, it seems like, forever sometimes.
Yeah.
So if they do that in other areas of life, just say somebody commits a crime or they go to jail, they could send out a certain frequency in the jail to calm everyone down
Mm.
or entice everyone. So this thing, it can be weaponized. And
Yeah.
that is the
Yeah.
thing that I noticed when I started to get into that part of it and talk about the weaponization. That's when people started to get real cranky.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, why? I mean, obviously, I'm a patriot. I want our country to be on the top of everything, right? Honestly, I always do, and I don't want to do anything to harm national security globally. Honestly, we're all humans,
Yeah.
but yeah, I get it. It's a big deal, and that's when the claws come out. That's when people get talking to and things like that. And it's interesting to see that this whole UFO experiencer psychic component is deeply tied to that. And when forever they try to push it away, but as well as I, that throughout the years, SRIs come out, all these documents have finally been released. Yeah, we had a remote viewing program. Yeah, we stopped it. Oh yeah, but we kept this one going over here. Oh yeah, we called it something different. It's called, and it just keeps going because it works. So they wouldn't keep putting money into it and doing it unless it worked. And America's not the only one. I mean, Russia's the reason we started doing it to begin with. Russia was doing it way before us and had a lot, stronger, stranger results, because I don't know if the ethical compass is there the same way as ours is. Not that ours is the shining example of the globe, but the Russians just didn't give a shit. So they did a lot of things that pushed it to the boundaries. So if you look at some of that research, that's mind-boggling, some of the things they've come up with. But the interaction between psychic ability and technology, to me, and DNA, is fascinating, and I think that's kind of where this whole thing's going. It's it's getting everybody on the same page. Like, yeah, this shit's real. All right, this is happening. Yeah, UFOs are real. Yeah, psychic ability is real. Yeah, okay, so now what? Right, AI. Okay, we know that's a thing. I don't know, but like you said, since 2018, somebody took that knob and just cranked it all the way up, right?
Yeah.
But why? Do you have any? Since the last time we spoke, have you had any more insight into any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I know that people that have operated craft, people that have been inside of a craft or interacted or operated one, they all say the same thing, that the craft is alive, and it requires the person that is operating the craft it's only to one person. So if it's your craft, it's intelligent, it's part of you. So someone has to actually be on that craft to operate it. So this is the reason they can't reverse engineer them.
It's part of your DNA, maybe.
Exactly. So
right.
it's like an extension of you, because on the surface, when you see a craft, sometimes they look like the size of a basketball or just a round object.
Yeah.
But going on the inside, and I've heard this story from many people,
they
go down levels and levels and levels. So they've somehow manipulated the space and time, problem or continuum that we have around us somehow. So whoever can get to that first, and Uri Geller talks about this stuff, this is out there. He's been doing that since the 70s.
Yeah.
So they're definitely, and this all has to be funded. It can't be funded by the government. So they go to Robert Bigelow, who's openly come out and said that he's spent more money on psychics and all this stuff than anything. And he was really gearing away from UFOs, but more towards the life after death and the consciousness aspect of this.
Yeah, it's amazing. I just did an interview with Dr. Jeffrey Long, and he's one of the, he was the runner-up for the Bigelow essay contest. I think Dr. Jeffrey Mislove won that, and it was to have the biggest, or do an essay to have the most evidence and most, evidence of life, of the body living after death, or the soul living after death. So Dr. Jeffrey Mislove won that, and Dr. Jeffrey Long was one of the runner-ups, and awesome guy, man. Very awesome. So he's working with Bigelow closely on all of that. And it's weird to see that. I mean, if you just look at that at face value and you don't look at it anything else, like you said, Bigelow spent more money than anybody else privately in the world on UFOs, and then switched it to what? Life after death.
Exactly. So that's the change. That's it. That's it. It went from, he was all UFOs,
nuts and bolts and all this shit. Yeah. To life after death and consciousness. Why? Because he probably found something that created the correlation, right? Why is all of his documents still locked up and he won't give them to anybody, right? that's still it. He won't. I mean, all that research, all the years that NIDSEAM, it's all his. It's private. You can't FOIA that stuff. It's just, So he found something, or he found a connection, a link. Why is there like poltergeist experiences every time everybody sees a UFO, or Bigfoot experiences, or any of that? All that shit's connected, and it's all. And the only common connection I've been able to find is consciousness. How does that work? How do you go outside and have UFOs show up, Andrew? What does that work? How does that work? You know what I mean? Like, it happens, but some people can turn it on. Some people can turn it off, and some people it happens to them sporadically and they don't know why. And what I've found out through my interview with Dr. Long, and a little bit of experience too, with just talking to experiencers myself, is that some people have had near-death experiences via car accident, some electrocuted, got hit by lightning, something like that, and they died. Right? They were dead. They had a near-death experience. They came back. And then after they were back, they start seeing UFOs. They start seeing ghosts. They start seeing all kinds of shit. They start being psychic. They start, being able to remotely. They're doing these things that they had no idea that they could do before, and they don't know that. I mean, that they can do it. And I mean, some of them probably use that as a correlation, but I think that's a big correlation. And Dr. Long and I was talking, I was like, he's got that survey that I think it's 100 different languages, and It's global for the near-death experiencer. It's ndrf.org, which is awesome. Check that out. But basically, the same survey goes out to everybody. It's like, and he correlates all the data, and it's like all of these things match, right? So we talked about it. And I said, hey, you should maybe put a section in there about, have you had any more since your NDE? Have you had any UFO experience? Have you had any psychic experiences? Have you had any, like, because that's a vast majority of people that have that, I've experienced. And now that the stigma has been lifted a lot, I'm sure that people will be like, oh, hell yeah, I can go out. I know when something weird's going on. I go outside and there's an orb, or whatever. So, I think it's definitely all tied to consciousness and near-death experiences. So, but
Yeah,
what does that lead us?
yeah, I definitely think that, people that are having ND, OBEs, some sort of contact out of body type experiences, to me, it's kind of like when you're hacking a computer program, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're hacking the matrix. And then
Yeah.
when you hack it, the validation you get that you're hacking it is when the craft shows up. They're like,
Ah,
okay, we're aware that you're trying to hack into the Apple program, and the bug or whatever is the UFO.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
showing we're aware. So my brother Rich is in the chat. He just said
Hey.
it's different cogs in the same wheel,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's it. There's many different modalities of contacts.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think the biggest, I don't know. I think the bummer of the whole thing is, like, everybody, in these different groups, right? So you have the people that are in the psychic group, right? And you got people that are in the UFO world, and the people that are into Bigfoot and the cryptids and all the shit. But nobody talks to each other. Everybody thinks everybody else is full of shit, and nobody thinks anything's related, right? So the guys that are chasing ghosts aren't talking to the people that are looking for Bigfoot. They're not talking to us. They're not talking to the UFO people. They're not talking to psychic people, because everybody thinks it's just, just big cesspool of different things, but it's all the same thing. And I think once everybody kind of gets on that same level, to just start talking to each other and like, go, look, what are all the common denominators here? What's going on? Okay, this is happening, and then I think once we kind of join up together and just be more open to all this, anomalous phenomenon, I think that's when we're going to really start pushing the boundaries of this. Because right now it's just all over the board. It really is. Don't you think?
Yeah, and that's something I came across. I would talk to incredible psychics that I trained with in the past, and they told me, stay away from UFOs. They're nothing but trouble, and most of it's nonsense. And they're right to a degree. A lot of it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
they're right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
some reason, every time that I would go outside and I'd be opening up and just saying, all right, show me a sign. I'd be calling to a relative that had passed on. Like, give me a sign, show me you're here.
Yeah.
Bang, these lights would show up, these craft would show up. So I was like, okay, this has been going on now for 5 years with me. At this point, now it's like, whatever, 14. But at the time, it was just a couple of years. I'm like, okay, there's something to this going on. Every time I call to a loved one that's dead, a
Mhm.
craft shows up. So what's the connection? And at that time, around 2015, 2016, Bigelow wasn't looking at the both of them together either. So like,
Right.
there's nobody out there to go to. You know what
Right.
I mean? Everyone was just like one or the other, like you said.
Mhm.
But it's all, I believe, the phenomena has many different ways of showing itself
Mhm.
and validating itself. It just, to somebody that has a belief system and just say, they go to church, they're into Jesus and all the saints and everything. They might go outside, they have an experience, and they see the saints or whatever. And somebody that's into Buddha goes out and they say, I'm telling you, I see the Buddha. I'm not crazy. I'm
Right.
seeing this is what that means. So I think the belief system is a big deal with this.
Oh yeah.
People can get very attached to, oh, that's God. Those are angels. Oh no, those are demons. Oh, this or that. You have to be careful. Somebody wrote in here, you have to be careful which psychic mediums you trust.
Oh
They're
yeah.
not all the same.
Right.
100%. You got to be
True.
careful where you're getting your info from with ufologists.
Mm.
You know that, John?
Yes. Yeah. I know that for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if the psychic world's been infiltrated by the intelligence community as hard as the UFO world is for this amount of years, but I got to imagine there's probably some. But I mean, maybe not as public or as vast it is, but now it's just, just since you and I have spoken last, it's the amount of infiltration is just massive. They're trying to steer the narrative in any way they can, disinformation, misinformation, giving you real stuff, and then giving you bullshit right after that. So it just completely destroys you, and that's going on. And, I mean, today was one of those major things that I never thought I would see happen in my life. There was classified briefing. Well, I mean, last June was one of the things. I never thought they'd have open hearings on UFOs with Congress, with people, when Grush came out and started talking. And, today was the classified briefing to Congress. That I never thought I would see that either, right? Where they actually have people in Congress, bipartisan, going in behind closed doors, and they're supposedly giving them a classified briefing. Now, what are they telling them? Who knows? Probably nothing. Yeah, it's no big deal. It's our stuff. Forget about it, but I don't know. I mean, but that's a huge deal. So the ball is being kicked down the field, and it's faster, a lot faster. 2018 was the kickoff. I mean, that was just a giant punt all the way to the end zone, right? And then from now on, it's running back. And we have all these different people. We got Lou Elizondo, we got David Grush, we got Chris Mellon, we got all these guys that are moving. DeLong, I think, is behind all of it. Just my 2 cents. That's my personal belief. I think DeLong put his stuck his neck out where he thought it was going to be, and he said, "Let me help you with this via the media. Let me how you control this whole thing, and I can help you do it. I can help you get to the kids. I can help you get to these people. I can help you get to the dissenters. I can help you craft this whole message in a way that everybody gets behind it." And that's, I mean, he said that in all the interviews. He wanted to be the Walt Disney of like ufology, right, and the paranormal. And I think that's kind of what he's doing, but he's doing it from behind the scenes, which is rad. I mean, he doesn't tweet anymore about it. All this stuff is going on. You got all these people out there that are former intel. They're supposedly telling their stories. But what I like to caution everybody is don't jump to conclusions. Don't rush to believe one side or the other. Just because Grush is coming out and saying one thing, I mean, who's to know if that's true? Who's to know if whatever he was told was true? And, this big game of telephone that could be going on could be massive, or it could be just some big ploy to steer you away from another narrative like DNA or whatever, right? That you don't want to pay attention to, and it's huge. I think it happens all the time. And I think it's happening right now. And I think if you just have some discernment and kind of go, this doesn't smell right, or, okay, well, I'm gonna listen to it, but I'm not going to believe it 100%. That's fine too, but just have your wits about you a little bit about it. I mean, for you, it's got to be a little bit easier since you're psychic.
It has its advantages. So I want to share something too. I don't know if many people know this, but this is a fact. I don't even know if I told you this. I don't know if you've heard this, but
yeah,
the reason that this type of disclosure and what's going on with the members of Congress, the reason that they're pushing it this much is because there are multiple members of Congress that have had close encounters.
Makes sense. Well, I mean, everybody. I was at a wake tonight, and oh yeah, because they know about my podcast. Hey, John, you know what? Boom, story. Somebody else story. Everybody has a story. Everybody was scared as shit to talk about it because of the stigma for all these years. Nobody wanted to talk about it, but everybody has a story. Everybody has a story of something weird happening to them, right? And everybody just throws it and compartmentalizes, and other people hang on to it and go, yeah, no, that was real. Like that was it, and maybe this conversation, maybe by doing this, it's accelerating that conversation that we can all talk about it without the fear of ridicule and belittlement and all those other things that's been happening, right?
So when they have these public events and public hearings, they'll just listen to the people testifying, but behind closed doors, because those people, everything they do is probably monitored anyway. They probably already know all this. They probably read all their texts. But some of the members of Congress that I know someone that has interviewed them, and they told me that there's multiple members of Congress that have had close encounters. I mean, taken
wow,
real,
real, not just seeing something in the sky, like
I mean,
abduction kind of stuff.
Like,
wow,
real deal. Right. There's a couple, maybe one or two that have had very close.
Wow.
Okay, I won't speak personally for them. Let them come forward when they want to. But I heard this from somebody that I trust very, very, very well. Trust them with everything I've experienced. So leave it at that. And they told me this is being pushed to Congress because they've had close encounters up close. And, same thing. They want to get answers. So it makes sense, right? Why would they be pushing it? But when you've had this happen, when you've experienced this, when you've been taken or you think you might have been taken or something weird goes on, you have to know. You have to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's a massive deal. And I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I wouldn't have a podcast and doing what I'm doing if I didn't have an experience. I mean, I was into it always before that, right? And I was like, it's cool and it was awesome. But once you have that experience, it changes you, right? And then once you do something to initiate that experience, like I did like the CE5, right? After that with a whole bunch of brothers of mine, right? That's on my channel too. It's, there's like, I don't know, like 8 or 10 of us. And, we meditated 25 minutes, just listening to, some meditation tones in the middle of nowhere. Boom, Orbs show up 2 nights in a row. Same thing, right? It was there for so long that half the guys just went to bed because they're like, yeah, solid already. Okay, cool. I'm out, right? It's giant orange orbs. Like, so when you have this experience where you're not expecting it and you see something, and then you're like, okay, I want this to happen. How do I make this happen? Let me try this. And then it does happen. You can't tell me it didn't happen, right? I mean, it happened. So it changes you. It changes you as a human. I think, and I think that's probably part of it. I think it's part of it to kind of go, oh, yeah, my paradigm is I go to work, I go to school, I go to church, I go to, I go to this, whatever. And, that's my day to day. But then when something unexpected just pops into your world, UFO, Bigfoot, whatever, ghost, I mean, psychic experience, you see your grandma, something like that, right? Then you automatically know there's more to life than you've been taught and more than life that you already know. And that opens the world of possibilities for everything, man. And that makes me excited about it. And that's why I started doing what I'm doing,
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing, people that are in this chat, same thing. Some people in this chat I've had contact with have actually seen this close up, in person. We've experienced this together. Sometimes people will look at a craft. I'll see one thing, you might see another. A picture is taken, and something different comes on the picture. So perception is so important with this, right? I'm seeing a cross in the sky or whatever, and you're like, no, I just see a round object, and someone's saying, I don't see anything. What are you guys talking about? You're crazy. And then now, they get night vision goggles, and now we could all see it. So it's very difficult to even spot this. Now, you mentioned something before, John. Have you ever actually done CE5 when you've had contact, or how do you do it?
Yeah. That's pretty much it. So basically, and I haven't done it alone. I've toyed with the idea, but there is that whole paradigm of like, what are you really doing, right? So what I did is, as a group of brothers, a bunch of Freemasons, that I trust with my life, obviously, went down south Ohio. Basically, we stayed at a cabin, we hung out for the weekend. There's no electricity, there's a well, so that it's like in the middle of the woods, as far southeast as you can get, right? And in fact, there's this park called John Glenn State Park where it's set up for an observatory. It's like this giant observatory where you can bring your telescopes and everything, because it's there's no light pollution for, I can't remember how many, 300, 400 miles or something to the east. So it's set up to be, there's nothing, right? And you can see everything in the sky. So we were going down there just to hang out anyway. And I'm like, hey guys, since they're cool and they know me, I'm like, hey, do you guys want to do this? We're basically going to sit, in a circle. We're going to meditate. And we just played some like kind of binaural beats, just kind of like, we're just going to sit down and, kind of walk through. And, Greer's thing, before he started charging for it, basically was just kind of like, hey, let's meditate. Let's just like think of like Google Maps, we're here at this spot, and just go all the way out to the universe and say, hey, we're here. If you want to come and say hi, we're open to, welcoming you in and peaceful. Just come and hang out with us and, show us that you're here. And we just sat around and, meditate 25 minutes. And then we're just chilling, sitting around, and nothing happened. 5 minutes. And then somebody's like, what's that? Big orange ball in the sky. Right. And the cool thing is I had a Psionics camera, like a color night vision camera. So I caught the whole thing. It got to the point, I mean, you can see in the video, I had to, I was just handing it around to the brothers, because I was like, here, same thing. Like, what are you seeing? This is what I'm seeing. They're like, oh yeah, what's that? Oh yeah. And they're like, yeah, there it is. It's right there. So, I've done that in a group. I haven't done it myself, just because I don't know. I don't know what it is. I still don't know what it is. I don't know what that is, but it's there. You can't say it's not. One of the brothers with me is a pilot, right? And he's like, that's not a plane. There's planes in the background, far in the distance from where we were sitting. He's like, you can see the plane. It's a big orange ball that's hanging out above us is not a plane, right? Yeah. So, it's like one of those things where when you have those experiences, that's what it is, But I think everybody can do it. It's nothing special, and like you said, I think that's very fascinating. The whole aspect of this whole thing is where I'm seeing a purple dinosaur and you're seeing a blue cross in the sky, and the girl next to me is seeing Jesus. I mean, like I think it's all how our consciousness filters our reality, or on the other side of that, it's how it's projecting itself to you. I think it can kind of look at you and tell you, you're going to relate to an orange orb, and she's going to relate to purple Jesus or whatever, right? Like, or Buddha. I mean, I think that it kind of tunes into who you are. But like you said earlier, I think you can hack it. I think you can interact with it in ways that we don't know. We've never been taught, and we're not supposed to, really. Right. I mean, for the psychic thing, I mean, I don't know. Andrew, you tell me, like, how does that work from a psychic? I mean, the stuff that you kind of you've learned about from other psychics, you learned about from your own experiences. But when you got into that whole world of what you do, I mean, there's probably some peers you could reach out to, but a lot of it was just trial and error, right? Like, figuring
Oh,
it out.
yeah. Trial and error and journaling and just writing it out and then talking to other people and meeting all the wrong people. You got to do that. You have to go through that in anything in life. Anything good in life is worth fighting for, going for, but you're going to
Yeah.
meet the worst of the worst when you do it, to weed out what you don't want to be, because you have to evolve and change.
Right.
If people
Oh,
are
yeah.
evolving and changing with you, you're going to stay stuck with them. So as you go, you're just like, hey, no, that's not what I want. Keep going. And though, like in the distance, like, well, that's what I want. And I know that's part of this journey. You know what I mean? I just got to weed that stuff out. And this, for me, I went from separating the two phenomena, psychic to UFO, to completely all merged into one. It was kind of like that. I felt like that in the beginning. I just had no one to say, like, yeah, it is. It was like kind of like, you need to figure it out, see what you can find. And I did. And I'm like, I kind of felt it was all connected. I just needed to really nail it. And I devised the system for myself. Somebody wrote in the group about CE5 sounds. So if you go on YouTube and you type in CE5 or Dr. Greer guided meditations, there'll be a ton that come up. You could play them. This doesn't cost any money. You can just go outside, play the tones. John was talking about it before. You sit outside at night under the stars, preferably later at night, after 10, 11 o'clock, because the sky is real dark. And, you want to identify any planes or satellites that are in the area, get a satellite chart or a star chart app.
There's apps everywhere. You can just pull it up, right?
Get them. They're free. You sit outside. CE5 is human-initiated contact. So we are proactively communicating with the UFOs, ETs that are out there through consciousness, through meditation. You project out in your mind, you project out where you are. You show them on a map where you are. And then eventually you will see where they are. And then the confirmation that you're seeing them and they see you, bang. You'll see a craft appear or an orange ball of light.
Or flash. Those flash bulbs happens like
flash bulb. Boom. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's basically them just saying, we see you. We can't stick around for a while, or we can. We'll stay around based on whatever's going out in the atmosphere. They stay for a while, or it's real quick. But for me, I mean, how about yourself? Seeing that thing or that object is like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
They get it. They see me.
Yeah. It's different. Like you said, it's different for everybody. Other people are just so shocked they can't believe it's happening. Other people are like, oh, that's awesome. And other people are like, I'm just going to go take a nap. It's like, it's the whole spectrum, It's like people are like my wife. I love her. I love my wife. And I always tell this story and she hates it, but she had an experience with me, when it was like early on, when we first got together, right? And we're driving over the river over by my house, and orange orbs all over the place, right by the Maumee River where I live, right? Like one's here and then it's here and then it's here. And it's like a whole fleet of them, just boom, boom, boom. It's sleeting sideways, right? Ice, it's coming sideways. She hates driving at night. She's driving pissed, things coming down. I'm like, Becca, look. She's like, yeah. I'm like, pull over. She's like, no. Like, just pull over the car. She's like, no. She's like, it's Christmas lights. I'm like, it's November. She's like, it's Christmas. Like everything that it could be in her mind is what it was. It's Christmas lights. It's lanterns, Chinese lanterns. It's everything. She just like could not wrap her mind, or did not want to admit to herself that's what it was. I swear to God, this is true. She gets mad every time I say this, but she wouldn't look, her and I in a room alone, nobody around, look me in the eye and say, yeah, I saw that. She would just be like, no, I didn't see that. No. And it took years until finally she's like, okay, all right. It wasn't until like 18 and it started to become a real thing, right? She was like, okay, fine. Yeah, I saw it. I don't know what it was. Okay. She's cool with it, right? So not like, but that's my wife. I love her to death. She could share everything with me, right? But she couldn't admit to herself that she saw something that she couldn't explain. Right. Yep. And it happened. It happened. But once it flipped that switch, 2 years later, we had our daughter. My daughter was 2 at the time. She laid down on the deck. She said, never did it before. She said, Daddy, yes, look up, Dad. She said, Daddy, lay down right here on the deck, like right down next to her. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, lay down. She looked up. Yeah, big white ball right above us. White orb, right? Yeah. My other daughter comes outside and she's like, oh yeah, there's another one. So there's 2 of them. Neighbors are out. We got binoculars. We're all looking at. I don't know what that is. John, what is that? I don't know what that is. I don't know what it is. There's a MUFON case for that one. They're like, you know what they told me? Weather balloons.
Wow.
Thanks, MUFON.
Yeah, it's It's crazy. I've heard of people, especially years ago, having a lot of problems with MUFON reporting stuff. I know they sold their files
Yeah.
to a TV show, and they took Ray Hernandez's story from free, and
Yep.
they totally changed it, made it like an evil doomsday type scenario that wasn't like that at all. So you got to be real careful what you watch out there. And when you see these stories, they're not all that they are panned up panned up to be. Sometimes they're nothing at all. Based on true events does not mean that it was true. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's
Oh
Hollywood.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Chris Bledsoe had to deal with all that shit too, right? Same thing. They tried to like completely destroy the guy after he made his, his report. And it's no secret that the government's been infiltrated NICAP and MUFON and shit for years. They just,
Yeah.
they want to get all that data as well, and they just want to get their pulse on what's going on too. And I get it. Honest to God, I don't think they know what the hell's going on either. They have no idea. They got a little inklings here and there, and they may know more than we do, but they come to people like us for information because they're not getting it. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating. And the thing that I've never delved into at all, I mean, obviously you and I are friends, we know each other, and, Duane Kier, she's a friend of mine. She's a psychic medium as well. But like, how was it different for you guys? How was it different from, for you having that extra ability in dealing with this stuff, and then dealing with people who may or may not have more information than, the average Joe? Like, how is it different for you when you experience these kind of things?
Yeah, well, it's frustrating sometimes. You realize that people are just humans, and sometimes, you got to remember your expectations, shouldn't be too out there or too high, that this process for most people takes a long time. Like,
Yeah.
I found out I could do some psychic readings, I could do this stuff, but I waited a good like 12 years to say, okay, now I'm coming out full publicly and doing all this. So
Right.
like, the process takes forever to come out and really come out. It's not for everyone. I know people that do it for a little bit and then retreat and go, I don't want anything to do with anyone in that world. People are nuts. They're a pain in the ass. And,
Wow.
but like,
But
no
they
matter
still do it personally though? I mean, that's the part. Do you turn it off for yourself?
yeah. Yeah. So, some people have a tough time with turning it on and off. You know what I mean? Some people like that meet say, I have trouble doing that. I was taught very well. So for me, it's easy. But with, interacting with people, that's always going to be the toughest challenge of all of us. So I think as you go, what I've seen though with people is a change.
Oh,
People
really?
are definitely shifting and changing. So some people that maybe weren't into this or were kind of bashing it years ago, some people now are like coming to me like, oh yeah, I had this happen, or I was just embarrassed. And I'm like, oh, thanks. Like, doesn't help me now. But
Thanks for being an asshole
forever.
to me 12 years ago.
Yeah, I still have the same. They're like, what about you? I'm like, it's the same thing. I haven't changed what I saw. It
Yeah.
is what it is. I keep seeing it. I told you, this is real. The government is going to come out and give you little drip drops, just drip drops, tiny little drips. They're
Yeah.
not going to fully come out and say it because they don't want to go into that defense budget, because when they find out that they're peaceful, you know what I mean? And then if they're not, that feeds the machine.
Right.
So,
Well, I think
like,
there's
what's
I think there's
going on?
both parts of that. I honestly believe, man, from all my years of research, that there's a group of people that really want this shit to get out, and there's a group of people that really don't. And they're at battle with each other all the time, and they're both kind of feeding the public, right? Okay, here's some bullshit, here's some real stuff, here's some bullshit, here's us fighting together, And I think the people that are fighting to get it out are the people like you and me and everybody else that's probably listening to this that have had an experience. These are the people like you're talking about, the congressmen and women that have had a life-changing experience to go, we're not alone. We need to figure this shit out, right? Like, okay, cool. I don't think, unless you're lying to yourself, I don't think, if you've had an experience, you could be on the other side of the fence. But of course, I was at a place in my life too. When I was younger, I would see ghosts is what I would see more, what I would think were ghosts, entities that weren't there, ghosts, right? And I met a lady that she wrote this whole series called Haunted Ohio. Her name was Chris Woodward. Nice lady. I was probably like 17, 18 years old. She's like, she's like, you see this stuff, right? I mean, yeah. She's like, you can just turn it off. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you can just turn it off. You don't want to see it anymore. When you see it, tell it to go away. Tell it you don't want to see it anymore. Put it on your mind. When you see it, when it comes up, go away. Turn it off. Turn it off. Turn it off. And that happened to me for a real long time. I did that because I was scared as shit because I didn't know what I was doing. I was a kid, turn it off. So I turned it off for a long time. And it just, when it would show up, it would be the same thing that these other people's like, that didn't happen. No, that wasn't there. That was, I'm drunk or whatever, I'm imagining it. And until I was truthful and honest with myself, until that happened is when, I started having my experiences again later in life. And when I started seeing shit, and, I think that's real. I think it is. I think you have the power with your consciousness to turn it on or turn it off. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I know people that, it's tough when they're having a dream or they're in a sleep type state and they feel paralyzed, like they can't move, they're getting sleep
I've had
paralysis.
that sleep paralysis is terrible. I had that one time that scared the shit out of me.
Wicked.
That's not good.
Yeah, that's wicked. I know people that have had that happen, and that's a real scary thing. But as far as proactively doing it, you can turn it on and off when you open up. You open up safely, and then when you're done, you say you're shutting down for the night. Please go back to your place of origin, and nothing should be coming home with you,
right?
Unless for some reason, you have something that needs to be shown to you, like if there's a health risk or a safety risk with you or someone in your family. Yeah. I've gotten sightings and visitations at home, but it's usually something very important, not like, mundane, but like, oh crap, all right, I need to act on this right away, because I've been doing this over 20 years of contact. It's been a long time where I've set up a system to, like anything, you get better at it. You get better, you recognize what's going on. So I think that's really important. If people realize, if we could control this and we can control this, wow, that would be a game changer.
Right. Yeah. And not through drugs like Garry Nolan and Dr. fucking Kid Green. You don't need a drug, right? I mean, you can do it. Yeah. Maybe you just need to spend a little bit more time with yourself and figure it out, I think that's part of it.
It seems like with people that are involved with big pharma or the drug companies and all that, it's always an answer of take this and that'll fix that. But what about if you sent the person to a 28-day treatment center, a holistic center, to really get in tune with themselves and recalibrate for the next 90 days somewhere? And let's see how we're doing before we start throwing the next pill down our mouth, which we have no idea what the side effects are going to be, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm not in that world. I'm glad I have nothing to do with that kind of lifestyle and whatever else is involved, man. I just want to get answers. Still, I just want answers now. That's all. It's the same thing as years ago. I just want to get answers.
Yeah. Somebody just said something about the hitchhiker effect. Yeah. that was the big deal about the whole book for the Hunt for the Skinwalker. I mean, that was a big deal. Like, I think that's possible. I do. I really do think that's possible that if you expose yourself to that, whatever those people are doing, they're not going to walk in there blind. I think the people, and I could just be, this is conjecture, but I think the people that are going there didn't just walk in there because they didn't think anything was happening. It's not like you're just taking a stroll through the woods and then all of a sudden you come home and shit starts flying off the wall. Those people that got sent there that had that were military trained professionals, right? They were there with assault rifles. They were there doing, that's the mindset. And I think that kind of, like we were talking about earlier, attracts whatever you're projecting. Like whatever you're projecting is just going to bring it back to you, like we were talking about earlier. You see a cross, you see the Buddha, whatever, right? You see a ball. I mean, I think that's kind of it's the whole kind of hermetic principle thing, as above, so below, right? It's kind of the macrocosm, microcosm. It's just a mirror. It's reflecting yourself to the ether and it's coming back to you as what it is. So if you are projecting that thing, then maybe shit's going to happen. I don't know, but I think it's real. I don't think it's not real.
Yeah. I think that, with, like I talked about belief systems before, about seeing these different things, when people open a religious text or something and they're praying and they're chanting and they're trying to call in something, the difference is when I project out and do CE5, I can see what I'm calling to. That's the difference, like even if it is God or a relative or whatever I'm projecting out to, I get visual confirmation. Imagine people sitting in church calling and projecting out to,
and Jesus shows up to the front.
And he showed up. Yeah. Oh my God, that'd be pretty amazing, right? So whatever it is out there is showing itself in a certain form that hasn't, freaked me out. And for me, it just puts a lot of things together. It answers a lot of questions that I've had about what the heck this is. I'm getting the visual. I say to people, you need to see this with me. When you see this, you'll understand. You're going to go, oh my God, this is incredible. How does that happen? I don't know, but it does. I read all these books. I've read Bibles. I've read religious texts, but I didn't see anything after, what I mean? Or during, but this thing reacts fast.
Yeah. Have you so you've not been freaked out yet?
No.
You haven't got to the point where it was just, this is too much.
The only thing that's ever freaked me out with any of this throughout the whole journey is just the people. And I just mean,
it's the worst. It's the worst
just,
link. Yeah.
The human element. It, like, people are worried about evil aliens. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about the evil humans on Earth that are mean to each other. That's what I'm going to deal with first, because that's in my four walls. You know what I mean? So, but outside that, you're worried about evil aliens. If they're that bad, there's nothing we can do anyway. They're going to wipe us out. They would have done it already. That's impossible. I don't buy it. But I think it shows us a good lesson. Yeah. If we treat them with open love and an open heart, okay, maybe we need to do that here to show our intention, right? So it's a very good lesson. Whatever the phenomena is, I think it's a very good lesson when people are doing it with the right intention.
Right. Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, Ian Doley told me at one time, you know, when we're getting early on, I mean, because I called him and asked him, I said, hey, you got any tips? Because he was huge. He was, follow Greer, and he's got his own, they call it heist now. Right. And so it's human initiated contact instead of CE5 was like was too attached to Greer. Right. So human initiated contact is the new, just like UAP is the new UFO. Right. So human initiated contact, that's kind of what the thing is. But, they would have groups of people on, and James had told me at one time, he's like, if you got one or two people that are just like, hey, this is bullshit, I don't, this isn't going to work, you guys are full of shit. It kind of screws up the whole vibe of the whole thing. It kind of doesn't, play well with the whole thing. But, in my mind, I think that a healthy skepticism is good too, but not to the whole negative side where you're, completely, pushing everything away, thinking it's not going to happen. But I don't ever pretend to know what the hell that is or what's going on, but I'm excited when it happens. And I think we all are. I think that's kind of one of the things where we just go, wow, this is rad. This is actually happening. Right. And then where do we go? Right. Like, where do we go? What's next? I mean, dude, people ask me all the time. I'm the guy that gets all the text. Hey, what's this? I'm like, Starlink. It's like, but like when people have real experiences, and people have real experiences. I mean, when you give people readings and people have real experiences from that, like, how do you direct them into a spot where they're like, okay, like, how do you get them to a spot where they can deal with the information they've gotten and like move forward? Like, how do you do that?
So it's a little bit each day, a little gradual shift to be extreme. And, like, I'm going on a radical diet, I'm gonna stop eating everything. Like, I don't think that's probably healthy. We want to just gradually pace. Yeah. So with this, there's a lot coming in, and it's all amazing. But if you just go out and think everyone's a peaceful ET and humans are good, and you got to be skeptical and be careful. And if something doesn't feel right, get out of the environment. Because I've had that happen where people would show up in a CE5 group, and I'm like, they don't want to be here. Someone raised their hand, and I'm like, I didn't want to come tonight. My husband dragged me, and I was like, why are you in here? You're ruining it for everyone.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to happen now, because they want to come in peace, and you're totally ruining the experience here. So when I do it now, I usually do it with no one, or just a few people, one maybe person, two, that I really trust and I know is on my wavelength, because it's all business now. You know what I mean? It's really, I get really serious with it, and I want contact right away. And if someone's not ready for that, I don't want to scare them. I get that. I respect that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Someone asked me in the chat here, did you ever do CE5 or not do the meditation app? Do you ever not use CE5 and just have contact? Oh yeah, I would just be in my house and go, they're outside, go outside. Because my body and the hair on my body will stand up sometimes. And I know I get a certain feeling. It's like a certain tone comes in, and I go, there's something outside, grab the camera. And my kids will grab the camera. We go outside, bang. There's a craft that comes right there. No CE5, no setup, just bang. Like it's waiting.
Just flipping burgers at the grill.
right at the spot. Like literally, you don't have to sky search. When I do CE5, I look in one spot and it goes right to that spot. Whereas years ago, I'd be, looking around the whole group like the Exorcist. You know what I mean? Like, but there's this easier, softer way as time goes on.
Yeah.
Find others that have been doing this for a long time, and like you did with James, pick their brain.
Yeah.
We are at that point, John, and I just wanted to thank you, everyone in the chat here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys wanted to contact Jon, what's the best way for anyone to reach out to you, Jon?
Oh man, hit me up on anything. I'm on all the socials. I mean, obviously it's Majerowski's hard to spell, but UFOs on the level is there. I mean, I'm on Twitter all the time. I'm on, you know, YouTube, basically any of the streaming podcast. I have my podcast on all of those as well, but just hit me up. I mean, my email is everywhere too, if you want to just chat or whatever. But Andrew, thank you very much, man. Thank you for being honest, being truthful, for just being you and being comfortable with, your life and sharing everything, your gifts with the world. And dude, thank you very, very much, man. I really appreciate you and never stop, dude.
Anytime, man. We'll have to have you back on again. And if anyone is trying to reach out to me, Andrew Radziewicz, the psychic firefighter. I'm on pretty much every social media app, YouTube, wherever. You can find me through Unidentified-S4 with Anthony. If you need to get in touch with Jon, you can find him on every social, or you can reach out to me and I'll connect you with him, no problem. And I will see you guys again in 2 weeks, same time, Friday night, 8 p.m. EST. Thank you to everyone. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.